Shalom, everybody. It's Kalila Kelly, your Irish Jew. I wanted to talk about the attack on a cafe in Gaza near the seafront, a cafe called Baqa Cafe at the seafront in Gaza City. And many people died, over 20 people died, women and children, of course. It's always women and children in Gaza. Very quick to mention that, and some men. And here it is. Yeah, so this is an article from The Guardian, and I'm just going to read through bits and pieces of it, and then I want to point out a few things about it, and firstly say how terrible that is. Everything that's happening in Gaza is terrible, and it was started by Hamas. They have brought this suffering on these people. The entire Islamist leadership, its whole framework, its methodologies, its ideology, its obsession with death, its obsession with using its civilians as human shields, all of this death is on Hamas's shoulders, every single one of it. So early afternoon was a busy time in the Baqa Cafe on the waterfront in Gaza City. Palestinians seeking respite from the relentless 20-month war that had devastated much of the bustling, vibrant town. On one side was the Mediterranean, blue and calm to the horizon. On the other, battered apartment blocks, wrecked hotels, and close-packed tents of displaced families. And 2 paragraphs into this article by The Guardian, I'm already a bit confused. Israel's detractors have been calling from the rooftops, from the river to the sea, they have been calling for this idea that Gaza is an open-air prison. Others have said that Gaza is a concentration camp. So already, just as someone reading this article, I'm a bit confused about those 2 narratives that don't add up. I don't understand how a place can be a prison, but then also be a bustling waterfront place with hotels and clean air and sunny skies and blue water. Those 2 images don't make sense to me, at least my understanding of prisons. Prisons are pretty maudlin places, so already I'm a little bit confused about what pro-Islamists have said Gaza is versus what The Guardian is now reporting it to be. But let's continue. Founded almost 40 years ago, the family-run Baqa was for many in Gaza City a reminder of better, more peaceful times. Like when? Like when? When Israel was in control? Before Israel gave Gaza back to the Palestinians to run in 2005 and ripped all the Jews out of the area and ethnically cleansed the Jews out of Gaza? Was that the better time? When was this idyllic time in the past? Before Jews existed on the land? Well, you'd have to go back over 3,000 years, so probably not that, right? It had long been a place to escape the claustrophobic strictures of life in the crowded territory, to talk freely, laugh and dream. Who put those strictures in place? Like, what strictures? The strictures from Hamas, who control the entire area, who control the school system, the hospitals, the police, the government, the law enforcement, the theology, the mosques, social life, travel, transport, everything is run by Hamas. Among those sipping coffee, tea and soft drinks, again, sorry, I'm really thick. Please explain this to me. How do people have time for soft drinks, tea and coffee in the middle of a genocide? I don't remember seeing my ancestral fellow Jews in concentration camps across Europe sipping coffee, tea and soft drinks. I don't remember those items being a part of the menu at a concentration camp. But apparently in Gaza's concentration camp, the open-air prison, quote unquote, apparently there's soft drinks, it's a thing, and tea and coffee. And there was also a young artist, Amna al-Samli, and her friend Ismail Abu Hattab, a 32-year-old photographer and filmmaker. Others included a journalist, a family with kids, 4-year-old child, mother and 2 daughters. None of these people have names, apparently. Then at about 3 o'clock, the peaceful scene at the Al Baqa cafe was transformed. Witnesses described a huge roaring explosion, flames, a plume of ash-grey smoke rising fast into the air. No one needed to ask what had happened. Well, yeah, because you're in the middle of a war that you guys started. You elected Hamas. Hamas started a war. Again, I thought these things were common occurrences in war, but apparently they're a major shock and outrage and, oh my God, what's happening when it comes to Palestine? I'm feeling a bit slow today, guys, so please bear with me. In recent days, the IDF has escalated its offensive across all of Gaza, but focused much of its firepower on the territories north, where Hamas remain relatively entrenched despite multiple military assaults. Nowhere in the article does this journalist in The Guardian say, and what the hell are Hamas doing? When are they going to surrender? When are they going to give up their weapons? When are they going to hand over and let their people be free? Not one mention of this. It's like Hamas are this sanitized, anonymous, just a name with no agency, a name that just sort of exists and is just sort of there in the background while all the Jews and the Israelis and the IDF do all the evil stuff. But Hamas are just they're just a side character in this tragedy that they started. They're hanging around in the background like an extra. They're not one of the main players. They're certainly not the villain. We all know who the villain is, Shylock. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. Dust and smoke cleared at the Al Baqa cafe. Scenes of carnage were revealed. And I'm not being callous, by the way. I think this is tragic. It's sickening. It's terrible. It's horrible. And here are people and emergency services running frantic around. It's terrible. Witnesses described what it was like, seeing the dead, seeing the debris. The IDF said the attack was under review, adding that the Israeli military had struck several Hamas terrorists in the northern Gaza Strip, and that prior to the strike, steps were taken to mitigate the risk of harming civilians using aerial surveillance. So Israel was saying that, and I tend to believe Israel because this is a channel that's Jewish, and I don't know, between Hamas and Israel, I tend to take what Israel says more truthfully than anything Hamas says. Who knows, guys? It's just so hard to tell who to trust these days. But anyway, here's a map, and here's where the cafe, right near the waterfront. They could have used your money, your tax dollars, and your money and your funding and your lovely donations. They could have used those billions of dollars to make this entire area of Gaza, some gorgeous Riviera front. I'm not the first to have this observation. It's like, duh, you had billions of dollars, and what did your leadership do? They built tunnels. More tunnels than exist in underground London. But they took the money and they built terrorist networks and screw the opportunity to build a beautiful, incredible tourism spot. But anyway, so this is where the cafe is, and up here is where apparently more Hamas terrorists are hiding out. Of course, they're not going to give up, and of course, Hamas haven't been called on to lay down their arms, and there's been no public uprising and nobody's protesting. Well, that's not true. There were a few who protested Hamas, and they were quickly beaten to death by Hamas. But basically, reading between the lines here of The Guardian, which is completely biased, Israel would have been looking for terrorists that are still hanging out in the area. And we know that the terrorists have been hiding in hospitals, in children's homes, weapons under beds. Like, there is no distinction between civilian and soldier in this fight, in this country, in this strip of land. So they talk about it, the fatalities, and it's sad. Abu Hatib was also killed. The filmmaker was badly injured early in the war, and in an interview last year described how his work haunted him, bringing insomnia and depression. And this is where he says something that I'm just like, you lost me. You just lost my empathy and my open-mindedness and my open-heartedness and my ability to feel sympathy, yeah? And this is what the quote is. He said, I have seen many martyrs, their meals still in front of them, unable to finish eating because they were killed. I think about that moment they must have felt just before death. A martyr is somebody who dies specifically in a religious cause. Somebody who dies for their faith. They are not murdered or killed, or they don't die just as something happening to them, and that's death. They die specifically on behalf of their religion. And every single time this word is used, the word martyr is used, that is literal speak for Islamist theology that says if you die in the service of the war against the infidel, you go to heaven, you get your rewards, and you're a martyr for the sake and for the cause of our Islamist ideal, of our fight. So this man has just described the civilians and people dying in his strip of land, and he is calling and referring to them in a religious war phrase. When Jews die and Israelis die, Jew and non-Jew alike, we don't refer to them as martyrs. We don't say, oh, they've died for the great cause of Judaism and for our faith and our religion, and they're going to go to heaven with 72 virgins, and we've got to keep fighting those infidel Muslims. We never say that. We never think like that, because that is not a concept. Jews love life. We love life. We are pro-life. We are instructed by Hashem, by God, to choose life over death. And these MOs, these guys here, the eternal victims, are the ones who worship death. So again, the two images happening here. One is we're victims, it's terrible, we didn't ask for this, we just somehow just keep getting attacked by those terrible Israelis. And then on the other hand, then they go, oh, well, they're martyrs, and they're going to a better place now in the service of our war for Islam, in service of our Islamic fight against infidels and kafir and Jews, Yehudi. So which one is it? Is it a tragic death brought about by the disgusting Israeli IDF and the evil Jews? Or are you actually celebrating the fact that they are martyrs and that there's a cause for this? There are countless videos showing Palestinian women, not all of them obviously, but the nut job ones, the real ideologues, right? Praising and boasting about their children becoming martyrs, boasting about dying for an Islamic jihad war, or their interpretation of that. Again, this is a society that is obsessed with death, a whole generation that has been raised over the last 20 years. And they're all fighting age kids now, and this is their mentality. This is their mentality, is to love death over life. So those two images, to me, don't add up. They don't add up here. We're being told that Gaza is an open-air prison, that there is a famine. Now, how do you have a famine if there's a cafe near the seafront where you can kick back and chillax and order from the menu? How can that happen if there's also a famine happening? How can you have cafes and leisure and fun and import products? I'm assuming Coca-Cola might be in there, being a soda drink. How can you import things if you're a prison? Did you smuggle them in? Are they contraband? What, again, those two images don't add up. How can you be a concentration camp and starving and then be relaxing and chilling back and kicking back near the water at a cafe? I'm also not clear how there can be a genocide going on. Where are the concentration camps? Where are the soldiers shooting 90% of everyone that's walking around? Where are the hubs where they're just killing everybody? not random airstrikes. That's not a genocide. Where are the locations in this picture? Whereabouts near the water is this genocide taking place? There has to be a location. There has to be organization. The Jews have to have completely taken over the area. They have to be in complete control, and they're not. They have to rule every single person in the space. There has to be some kind of factory system going on. I mean, if you're going to commit genocide, you need to have some sort of organization to it. Yes or no? Apparently, Jews are meant to know. They've turned into the real Nazis, according to Miriam Margolyes. I mean, excuse me for my sarcasm, but again, it's like none of this narrative adds up. And if you pause for 5 minutes and look at it, and look at the language, we're dying, it's terrible, it's tragic, but they're martyrs, fighting for our religious cause. Shut up. And then you wonder why it's so freaking hard to make peace with these people, with this ideology, why it is virtually impossible for them to just flick that switch and go, you know what? Let's be like other countries in the Middle East. Let's be like other Arab brothers who have decided to move forward with life, move forward with Israel, and move forward into the next generation, into the next century, and move on from this narrative that they will not let go of, that they've been doing for nearly 150 years, this obsession with getting rid of Jews, not letting Jews live side by side with them, this obsession and this refusal to have true peace, refusal to choose life over death. So that's just my thoughts. Thank you so much, Guardian. Jason Burke in Jerusalem and Malaka Tamtesh in Gaza. Thank you so much. I appreciate the reporting. Those are just my thoughts. And have a great night. Bye.